Love can be a tricky thing for our culture to define. Loves to write music about it, movies about it, books about it, but it hardly, if ever, seems to get it right. So often it settles for cheap substitutes, for things that bounce around the surface of what love actually is. For example, sometimes people talk about love as this is a force, something powerful, passion. Andre Agassi's dad had passion. He was completely devoted to his son and teaching him the sport that he would become world famous for playing. And in his book, Open, Andre Agassi talks about the passion his father had for his son on the tennis court. Talks about being a baby when his dad taped ping pong paddles to his hands and encouraged him to hit the mobile hanging over his crib to develop his hand-eye coordination. Talks about being a 7-year-old boy when his dad took a ball machine, extended the pipe on it, souped it up, put it up on a stand, and fired balls at his 7-year-old son, demanding he hit the ball pure. Talked about practices beneath the Las Vegas sun. Remembered his father screaming at him when he missed a ball in the net. He was passionate. And his son became one of the best tennis players this country's ever produced. But do you know what the first words of his biography are? I hate tennis. So much passion wasted because there was no love, at least not in that sphere of his life. For 12 years, there's a sitcom called The Big Bang Theory. And it told the story of a group of friends navigating life, but at the center of it was someone named Sheldon Cooper. That's the guy sitting on the couch in the middle in the blue shirt. And in the show, he was their genius. A physicist who specialized in string theory, who knew everything there is to know. And he loved educating his friends. But he's not the hero of the show. He's the punchline. Because he is so aloof, so unaware of how his words and actions affect the people in his life that he just comes off as a clueless know-it-all. So much knowledge lost, wasted, because there is no love. There's a time where Bill Cosby was a quintessential American dad. He was smart, he was funny, he was successful, he was always there for his wife and kids, everything an American dad should be. And his public life seemed to match. He gave millions and millions of dollars to education. He supported different children's charities like the Children's Miracle Network or Boys and Girls Clubs of America. He seemed to talk the talk and walk the walk while the cameras were on. But you know how that story ended. The cameras were off. He was a predator. And all those great acts of sacrifice that he did, they're all forgotten about. Because he didn't show love to the people in his everyday life. You see, that's the thing. Love is the gift that makes the others stick. If you go back 2,000 years to a congregation in Corinth, it's the same thing. It's a church with so many problems. A church where you have rivalries between who likes this pastor and that pastor. It's a church where all of the rivalries show themselves so they can't even celebrate communion together without getting in a fight. They've got all kinds of immorality happening in their midst, and they don't do anything about it. They take their Christian freedom and they use it to the point that they chase people away from Jesus. It is a mess. But if you boil down all their problems to one thing, guess what they didn't have? Love. They were such a talented congregation, but they were wasting their gifts. And so in the verse right before our sermon text, Paul says he'll show them and us the most excellent way. And here's what he writes. If I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, I'm only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Speaking in tongues was an important gift for that first generation of Christians. Because remember, Jesus sent them out to every tribe, language, nation, and people. And to be able to speak in languages you had never learned, that was an invaluable gift. But if when they went out speaking in those languages, they didn't care about the people they spoke to, it was just noise. Like Andre Agassi's father yelling at his 7-year-old son in a tennis court. A clanging gong, it says. Knowledge is important. It's such a wonderful thing to know what God says in His Word, to be able to understand it, to comprehend it, and share it with others. And to have a faith that means you believe it to be true and have the boldness to share it. Such an important gift. But if you don't care about the people you're talking to, you risk that knowledge becoming a punchline, becoming a Sheldon Cooper or a spiritual know-it-all. Great acts of sacrifice and heroism, they can be good things. But if that's where your love ends, if it's a love that's only for when the cameras are on and when the cameras are off, you can't show that love in your daily dealings with people, then that's all they're going to remember. And in spite of all those great acts of heroism and sacrifice, they will mean nothing to the people God has placed in your life. You see, love is the gift. It's one that makes all the others stick. If you don't have it, it doesn't matter how much you know. It doesn't matter how great the sacrifice. It doesn't matter how passionate you are. It is all wasted. But if you have it, then you make an impact that endures into eternity and even continues there. You see, love is a key. And in a world that doesn't get it, the Apostle Paul describes it for us in these verses. He says, love is patient. It's a love that can wait. It's not ruled by its passion. Love is kind. It's useful. It's beneficial to the people in your life. It's not lost in the clouds. It's always connected to the ground. It does not envy. It's not some green-eyed monster that always sees what everyone else has and is angry about the things we don't have. It's happy for what other people has, and it's content with what I have. It doesn't boast. It's not always looking for a soapbox. It's not some windbag with endless eloquent words and sayings that never translate into action. And it's not proud. Love does not take itself too seriously. It's not overinflated with self-importance. It does not dishonor others. It cares about not offending people. It cares about not being rude. It cares how its words and actions are taken by other people. Because if you love people, you can't run roughshod over them. It's not self-seeking. It's not transactional. It's not always looking for a way to manipulate things for me, because when love is in the picture, me is not. It's not easily angered. It doesn't allow its passion to hurt the object of its love, and it keeps no record of wrongs. It does not brood over evil and kick in our heads over and over again the times people insult us and hurt us. It doesn't delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It doesn't suffer injustice on one side and then rejoice when the other side receives injustice as well. It cares what matters, what's true. It always protects reputations and lives and property. It always trusts because there's nothing that could happen that is bigger than our God. It always hopes in every situation because there's nothing that can happen that can remove the hope of heaven from the horizon of our lives. It always perseveres because God will not let you get steamrolled. It never fails. Today on Youth Sunday, just look around at our ushers, our greeters, our musicians, our AV booth. Think about the young people in your life. What do they need from you? They need your love. Not a misdirected passion that either smothers them or scares them half to death. They need your love, not just information. Of course, there's a lot they have to learn. They don't have our experience yet, but if you don't show them you care, they're not going to care. And you'll come off like a spiritual know-it-all. They need your love. Not grand acts of heroism, not soapboxing this or that issue, but a love that shows up on Monday. A love that's connected to the ground. A love that benefits them. See, that's a love that never fails. And you know, those words can be hard to read because our love fails all the time. And there's a good chance that the last time you heard this lesson, you were sitting at a wedding. And it's a fitting reading for a wedding because marriage can be such a great place where you have an opportunity to exercise this kind of love. But I don't care what couple you're talking about, they blow it before they hit the parking lot, pastor included. Because we don't do that. We fall short of that all the time. But not Jesus. You can go through 1 Corinthians 13 and you can replace the word love with Jesus. And there you get a picture of a life of love lived for you. Whether you're talking about Jesus as a child, as a 12-year-old in the temple, as an adult in his ministry, or up on the cross, he lived that life in your place. And he offered that life to pay for all of our failures to love. And that love is a basis of our relationship with God. You see, we're born into our families. And we hang out with our neighbors because they moved in next door. And we're friends with our friends because we have common interests. But your membership in God's family has nothing to do with love or convenience or common interest. Your membership in God's family is based on one thing and one thing only: love. His undeserved love for you that drove him to that cross. It's a basis for a relationship with God, and it will be forever, and that's why it's the one thing that lasts. Paul continues. Love never fails. But where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they'll be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will all pass away. For we know in part and we prophesy in part, but when completeness comes, what is in part disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put the ways of childhood behind me. For now we only see a reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I'm fully known. And now these three remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. Knowledge, that's a good gift of God. Think of the things we know about who our God is, who we are, what he expects of us, what heaven's going to be like from Scripture. And having an understanding of those things, having a depth of knowledge that we can share, a huge gift. But even the greatest of us, even the best theologian on the planet, has such a small part of the picture. Like looking in a mirror. Or like a preschooler. Do you remember when your kid was in preschool? I I mean, when my kids were that age, I was hoping they could get their shirt on the right way, get their socks on. They never got their shoes on the right foot, but if they just had shoes on, I was good with that. And if you ever met a preschooler who knew long division, knew their multiplication tables, or could read, I mean, that was impressive. But for an adult, if you come up to me after the service and say, Pastor Olson, I'm surprised you can read, I think I'd be offended. You see, what impresses a kid doesn't impress adults. Right now, our knowledge of the best of us is like a preschooler. We see such a small part of the picture because we could not begin to wrap our minds around it all. But one day we'll be there. We'll be standing there face to face with God. We'll finally know God as well as He knows us. And we're probably going to find out we're not even asking the right questions. And the difference between our levels of knowledge, it'll be blown away in all the discoveries that are there. You see, knowledge is a good gift, but it'll pass. Faith is a good gift of God. But faith seen is the end of faith. One day you'll be standing face to face with God and you won't need faith anymore. Faith's time will pass. Hope is a great gift of God, but one day you'll be standing there, and hope realized is the end of hope. It too will pass. But love, that's the one common denominator between this world and the next. It is a basis of your relationship with God now, and it'll be the basis of your relationship with God there. It's a basis of your relationship with each other now, and it will be the basis of your relationship with each other there. It is the one thing that carries over from this world to the next. And so it never fails. And I think that's why it makes such an impact. As you leave church here today, just take a second to consider when you were the age of some of the youth who are serving us today. The people that stand out in your head, who do you remember and why? I remember when I was around their age in 5th grade, I was asked to play trumpet for a wedding. And I practiced, and as soon as I saw people in the church, I froze. And I'm not kidding, I did not hit a single right note the whole time. And yet after it was over, I was so embarrassed, but the bride came up to me, told me I did a good job, gave me a big piece of cake. I knew she wasn't really telling the truth, but I still appreciated the cake. I tell you what, I don't play trumpet anymore. But I remember her. Remember my first real job was working for a dairy farmer. And I didn't have a ride to chores that morning, so I took my dad's truck. I was a little too young to drive. It was on gravel road, so I figured I'd be fine. I get to the driveway. I'm going a little too quick. I end up going into the cornfield. I panic. I went farther than you'd think in that cornfield. I get back out. I get to the barn. I just do my job. He comes and finds me and says, Dave, we got to have a talk. I try to play it cool. I get outside, and in the daylight, I see there's corn stalks coming out of the grill all over the place. I thought he'd scream at me. He just laughed and said, Dave, you're doing a good job, and let me get back to work. I don't know anything about dairy farming, but I remember him. I remember teachers who gave me more chances than they should have, who encouraged me to work harder when I wasn't working hard enough. I don't remember the lessons they taught, but I remember the effort. I remember how hard they worked to show that they cared. And maybe you're the same. It's funny, isn't it? Love makes an impact beyond all the other gifts God makes. It's the one thing that lasts, the one thing that is the same from this world to the next, the one thing that endures. As Paul said, love never fails. Amen.